The Marvel Cinematic Universe has done a lot to bring superheroes into the mainstream. I mean, sure, we've been getting Spider-Man and Batman movies for years, but if someone told you in, say, the 90s that Iron Man would become one of the most popular superheroes, or that Rocket Raccoon would become a household name, you wouldn't believe it. But even though there are lots of characters that the MCU has been able to bring to a wider audience, there are also a few that they kinda wasted. Welcome to Top 10 Nerd. I'm Andrew Boyd, and today we will be looking at the top 10 wasted MCU characters. Let's do the thing I just said. Number 10. Betty Ross. In the comics, Betty Ross is one of the most important people in the Hulk's life. They have been in love since before Banner's accident, and is one of the few people who can reach Bruce when he is transformed into the Incredible Hulk. Betty has made one MCU appearance in the often ignored Incredible Hulk film, where she was played by Lord of the Rings alum Liv Tyler. In her one appearance, she managed to portray the mixture of caring for Bruce combined with terror at what he can become that the character needs. But she hasn't been seen on screen since 2008. In the time since in the MCU, Banner has been paired up with Black Widow and has never even mentioned Betty in any of the appearances he has had since. As far as we know, he never reached out to her during the period between Avengers 1 and 2 where the Hulk was largely accepted, or during the years after the snap, where he was able to learn to control the Hulk side of him. The thing that was keeping them apart to begin with. Betty's father, Thunderbolt Ross, has made a few appearances in the years since, but despite this, the character has never been alluded to in any major way since. This is a shame, as in the comics, she is a great character who also becomes the gamma-powered creatures Harpy and Red She-Hulk. With more Hulk and She-Hulk on the way, her dad's inclusion in the Thunderbolts, and the recent return of the Abomination from the 2008 film, maybe we will see Miss Ross again soon. Number 9. Mr. Fantastic. In Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, we got to see a few well-loved familiar faces, especially when we were introduced to the Illuminati. We got to see Captain Carter, we were reintroduced to Black Bolt after his disastrous appearance in the Inhumans show, and even Patrick Stewart as Professor X in his classic yellow chair. Most surprising was the appearance of one of the most consistent fan castings in MCU history, with John Krasinski appearing as Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four. Obviously the Illuminati were pretty short-lived before they were all brutally killed by Wanda, but the briefness of Mr. Fantastic's appearance was especially disappointed, with him doing little to no stretching, telegraphing his team's plan to the Scarlet Witch, and being turned into spaghetti almost immediately. This isn't too bad, as it is meant to be a cameo appearance, and we are getting a Fantastic Four focused film quite soon, but Kevin Feige has heavily implied that Krasinski playing Reed was a one-time thing, and that the main Fantastic Four will have a different Mr. Fantastic. If that is the case, and he doesn't at least show up on the Council of Reeds, then I'd rather they had not used him at all. But while we're on the subject, my choice for Reed is Glenn Howerton from Always Sunny, with Miles Teller as the Maker. Number 8. Mar-Vell. In the comics, the original Captain Marvel was Billy Batson, but the original Captain Marvel in Marvel Comics was a Kree warrior named Mar-Vell. Mar-Vell came to Earth on a mission and took over the identity of a deceased Cape Canaveral scientist named Walter Lawson. While stationed there, he met the base's security chief, Carol Danvers, who he fell in love with. He soon became a superhero, calling himself Captain Marvel, and began protecting Earth, often accompanied by Carol, who went by Miss Marvel, among other identities. He was first introduced in 1967 and was a hero until his death from cancer in 2012. He's come back a couple times briefly, but his mantle has been passed down, and Carol became the new and current Captain Marvel a few months later. For the Captain Marvel movie, the decision was made to focus on Carol and to have her be the one and only Captain Marvel in the MCU. A gender-swapped version of Mar-Vell appeared in the film, played by Annette Bening, but she was killed off with only a few minutes of screen time. Now, I don't really care about the gender swap, and I've never had any interest in any Captain Marvel who doesn't have the powers of Shazam, but it's always sad when a character who operated as a hero for 45 years is turned into a throwaway character. And if there's anyone out there whose favorite superhero was Mar-Vell, I imagine it would really suck to see them be such a minor part of the movie. Number 7. Scorpion. First appearing in Amazing Spider-Man number 19 all the way back in 1964, Mac Gargan was a private eye who was hired by J. Jonah Jameson to follow Peter Parker around to discover how he managed to get such impressive pictures of Spider-Man. Due to his spider sense, Peter was able to avoid Gargan pretty easily, causing Jameson's scheme to fail. Jameson then paid Mac $10,000 to undergo an experiment that would put him in a green suit with a tail that would grant him the abilities of a scorpion. Jameson hoped to make a hero he could control to take out the webbed menace. Unfortunately, the formula drove Mac insane and he began attacking people, becoming the villain known as the Scorpion. Mac Gargan first showed up in live action in the MCU film Spider-Man Homecoming in a blink-and-you'll-miss-it cameo where he was a career criminal who did absolutely nothing but get knocked out by Spider-Man. But you know, that's fine. Homecoming already had a lot of villains with the Vulture, the Tinkerer, and 2 different versions of the Shocker showing up, and plus, he showed up in the post-credits scene claiming that he was gonna go after Spider-Man next time, but Spider-Man's next movie didn't have the Scorpion, and instead focused on Mysterio. But whatever. But then the next movie obviously had a lot going on, and didn't have time to bring in the Scorpion. But it does feel like a dangling plot thread that they may or may not get to, which is a real shame, because Gargan is played by Michael Mando, who is great in Better Call Saul, and would make a fantastic villain. He ranks pretty low on this list as there is a chance he'll show up again at some point. Number 6. The Sinister Six. Speaking of Spider-Man villains, let's briefly talk about the Sinister Six. In the comics, the Sinister Six is a team of Spider-Man villains who have come together in order to try and defeat their adversary. It's a staple of the mythos, and Sony has been trying to get the Sinister Six in a movie for years since then. They seem to be charging ahead with the idea of a Sinister Six movie over at Sony that will likely feature Venom, Morbius, Kraven, and the Vulture among others, but we came this close to getting the Sinister Six in a movie that doesn't sound like a total train wreck in the recent Spider-Man Far From Home. Far From Home, as I unfortunately learned from a random TikTok a day before the movie came out in my country, features Tom Holland's Spider-Man teaming up with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's versions of the character to battle villains from across the franchise's history. We got the return of the Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and Sandman from Tobey's movies, as well as Electro and the Lizard from the Garfield movies. We had 5 villains. We missed out on a multiversal Sinister Six by 1 villain. They could have brought back James Franco or Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn's. Tom Hardy's Venom was even in the same universe, just hanging out on a beach at the time. Heck, I wouldn't have even minded Topher Grace's Venom coming back. Or, if you have to, bring back Vulture or Mysterio. I would even take the Rhino. Sure, the movie was already dealing with a lot, but it's not like Sandman or Lizard got a lot to do anyway. It just feels like a weird choice for us to be stuck with a Sinister 5 when it wouldn't have been that hard to add 1 more villain. Number 5. Nuke. In the comics, Nuke is a former Vietnam soldier named Frank Simpson, who was subjected to experiments in a rather sloppy attempt to replicate the Captain America Super Soldier program. His body was enhanced and he was given red, white, and blue pills that would regulate his adrenaline, giving him an edge in combat. He is quite insane and is used by the US government as someone they can drop into situations where they want everyone killed, as Nuke still thinks he's in the war and fighting for his country. In the Netflix Jessica Jones series, which is set in the MCU, it's in just this weird place canon-wise. Nuke is a former soldier who has become a police officer named Will Simpson. He develops a relationship with Trish Walker and is helping Jessica to hunt down Kilgrave. After almost being killed in an explosion, his former government doctor gave him similar red, white, and blue pills to help him recover. He went a bit nutty, but wasn't nearly as dangerous as Nuke in the comics, which is already a bit of a waste. What's worse is that at the end of the first season, it seems to be setting him up as a major antagonist for season 2, but when season 2 came out, he was unceremoniously killed 2 episodes into the season. With the canon of the Netflix shows being kinda iffy, and one of Nuke's major appearances, Daredevil Born Again, being adapted into a Disney Plus show, maybe Nuke will finally get his chance to shine. Number 4. The Prowler. In the comics, Aaron Davis is the uncle of the second Spider-Man, Miles Morales. He also operates as the villain, the Prowler, often coming into conflict with his nephew. His story was explored pretty much perfectly in the movie Into the Spider-Verse, but this was not his only big screen appearance. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man interrupts an arms deal between a version of Davis played by Donald Glover and ends up saving the criminal's life. Later, Spider-Man webs him to a car and gets information about the Vulture from him, but that is the last we see of Davis. He doesn't give off supervillain vibes at all, and it doesn't feel like they're setting him up as a future villain, although he does name-check Miles, so that's kinda fun. This isn't just a waste of a good villain, it's a waste of Donald Glover, who would be great as so many different Marvel characters. Number 3. Flash Thompson. In the comics and in all of the movies, Flash Thompson is Peter Parker's high school bully. In most versions, he's kind of a jock who will make fun of Peter or beat him up. In the MCU, he's still a bully, but he's more a modern version who will make fun of Peter online and is kind of a loser. I actually like this change. It's how bullying actually works in this day and age. I should know, you guys bully me in the comments all the time. The only issue with this is that in the comics, Flash ends up becoming a Black Ops military officer who ends up taking on the Venom symbiote and becoming Agent Venom. As much as I like MCU Flash, I don't think it would be very believable for him to go down that path. Number 2, Gorr the God Butcher. For all its faults, Thor Love and Thunder gets the broad strokes of Gorr the God Butcher's character right. He hates the gods and is intent on using his necro sword to kill all of them. The details are a bit different between versions, but that's all present in some shape. What makes Gorr a wasted character is the fact that other than his opening scene, we never get to see him do any god butchering. He gets very little to do, which is even more of a shame because they were able to get Christian Bale, one of the greatest working actors, to play him, and then barely had him in the movie. Number 1, Quicksilver. Quicksilver is one of, if not the, fastest man alive in the Marvel Comics universe. Most would say he definitely is, but I think North Star from Alpha Flight might have something to say about that. He first appeared all the way back in 1964's X-Men number 4, where he was a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants along with his sister Scarlet Witch. He has been both villain and hero, being a member of the Avengers and being an important Marvel character. In the MCU, he was in one movie, before being shot by a bunch of bullets that he really should have been able to outrun. He never showed up again, until a mind-blowing scene in the WandaVision show, which seemed to imply that he had returned, being played not by Aaron Taylor Johnson, but by his multiversal counterpart, played by Evan Peters. Unfortunately, this turned out not to be the case, and Evan Peters was actually just playing a hypnotized actor named Ralph Boner. Any other characters who were wasted in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more Top 10 Nerd.